Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 285 based on novel. So let's start. Huiyuhao's surroundings gradually became illusory, but everything around him was a vast forest from beginning to end, like there was no end at all. Huiyuhao was confident that he would have traversed even the Great Star Doe forest at his current maximum speed, but this forest he was in seemed endless. He released his divine sense, but all he could feel were endless trees and vegetation. Huiyuhao stopped only when he couldn't feel the murderousness from behind him anymore. He dropped to the ground, and when he turned around, he was still stuck in the vast forest, but his father-in-law's terrifying aura was no longer there. Huiyuhao's life was temporarily safe, but he could only laugh bitterly at his predicament. He had such a powerful and overbearing father-in-law, so how could he search for Tang Wu? Furthermore, his father-in-law was the God Realm's enforcer while he had just entered the God Realm. He was still unfamiliar with everything around him, and there was hardly anything he could do. What should I do next? He was in a completely unfamiliar place. Furthermore, he could be in danger at any moment. Huiyuhao had gone through so much trouble to become a god, but even now, he felt a thread of helplessness. Huiyuhao laughed bitterly as he walked forward. No matter what, he had to leave this forest before anything else. He didn't dare to fly above it, because that would expose him too easily. There seemed to be some mystical force within this forest, and not even his divine sense could reach places further away. Huiyuhao didn't know how long he had walked when the area before him emptied and grew spacious as a small lake appeared in front of him. Huiyuhao was momentarily stunned when he saw this lake, because he realized to his surprise that this lake was too similar to the Great Star Doe Forest's Lake of Life. Wait! Huiyuhao's eyes flowed with astonishment, because he suddenly realized that there was a small courtyard by the lakeside. There were 3 wooden houses inside the courtyard, and they weren't very large. However, they were intricate and exquisite, and their location by the lakeside in a forest seemed especially scenic and poetic. There were houses, and that meant there were people. Huiyuhao hurriedly stepped towards those wooden houses. Even though he didn't know which god stayed here, asking someone about the god realm was better than trying to figure things out on his own. That was especially so because he had offended the enforcer. Huiyuhao raised his voice and asked as he came to the courtyard, "Hello, is anyone here?" Huiyuhao asked 3 times before the door to the wooden house in the middle opened, and someone walked out. This man had golden hair and a burly, muscular frame. He had mundane and unassuming facial features, and he looked a little more than 30. An indescribably old and ancient aura emanated from this man as he stood there, and he was like a towering and majestic mountain that would intimidate any onlooker. For some reason, Huiyuhao seemed to find this person a little familiar. He felt like he had just seen the White Tiger Duke. Huiyuhao's eyes were incredibly sharp, and he focused and realized to his surprise that this golden-haired man also had 2 pupils in each of his eyes. "Come in." The golden-haired man's voice was deep and thick, but it carried a tinge of clanging sounds. The courtyard door opened as Huiyuhao stepped in subconsciously. However, his eyes were fixated on the golden-haired man's face from the beginning to the end, and he seemed to guess something in his heart, but he couldn't really confirm his theory. "He's here?" Another voice could be heard in this moment. This voice was a little cold, but extremely touching and melodious. There was also tenderness mixed with the voice's coldness. Another person stepped out from the wooden hut. Flowing black hair draped behind her, and her simple black dress brought out her beauty and elegance. She seemed like she was around 28 or 29, and her body was very mature while her features were gorgeous. Coldness radiated from her beautiful eyes, but her eyes were very gentle as she trained them on Huiyuhao. They even had a tinge of benevolence. "You must be Yu-Hao." The black-haired lady smiled as she spoke. Huiyuhao nodded, but his eyes seemed a little lost. The lady turned and glanced at the golden-haired man as she giggled, "He must be stronger than you are. He's a tier 1 god." "He's still my descendant," the golden-haired youth said proudly. Huiyuhao's eyes froze as he immediately confirmed his speculation. Who are you?" The golden-haired youth stared at him with passionate, sparkling eyes. "My name is Daimubai, and this my wife, Zhu Zhuqing. Dai Mu Bai? Zhu Zhuqing? Even though Hui Yuhao already had his own speculations, he could still feel his blood stirring in his veins when he heard their names. Hui Yuhao had just entered the God realm, but the enforcer was coming after his skin. And when he was blank and helpless, he suddenly met his ancestors. Yes, his ancestors. Back when Shrek Academy was still a small academy with a concept 10,000 years ago, they had only enrolled monsters and not normal individuals. Back then, that generation of Shrek 7 monsters was born, and shook the entire continent. Only then was Shrek Academy born, and only then did the Tang sect come into existence. The leader of that generation of Shrek 7 monsters was undoubtedly Tang San, who later became both the god of the sea and the Azura god. However, the other 6 individuals were equally outstanding. The person who was most senior in that generation of Shrek 7 monsters, the person that even Tang San had to call his elder brother, was called Dai Mu Bai. People knew him as the Evil Eye White Tiger, and he was the first of the White Tiger Delure. The White Tiger was inherited by the Dai family, and the White Tiger Duke, Dai Hao, who was Hui Yuhao's father, was one of them. This also meant that if this man was truly the Evil Eye White Tiger, Dai Mu Bai, then he was Hui Yuhao's ancestor. Zhu Zhuqing was number 6 in that generation of Shrek 7 monsters, and people knew her as the Netherworld Spirit Cat. The strongest individual with the most formidable individual fighting strength besides Tang San in that generation of Shrek 7 monsters was undoubtedly Dai Mu Bai. Legend held that Dai Mu Bai had also become a god, and that he disappeared without a trace after having sons and daughters. Hui Yuhao had undoubtedly confirmed this legend at this moment. Hui Yuhao ran into his kin in his most difficult moment, and that feeling was just so wonderful. Hui Yuhao subconsciously released his divine sense and stretched it over to Dai Mu Bai and Zhu Zhuqing. Dai Mu Bai frowned a little, but said nothing. Hui Yuhao was brimming with emotions, but he couldn't proceed blindly. He would truly embarrass himself if he recognized the wrong ancestor, so he had to feel for himself. Inherited bloodlines wouldn't change through the passage of time, and Hui Yuhao fell to his knees and kowtowed in the next moment. His voice was so excited that it trembled as he said, "Greetings, my 2 grand ancestors. I am Hui Yuhao. You should be called Dai Yuhao. Otherwise, how can you call me your ancestor?" Dai Mu Bai chided. Dai Yuhao? That name cracked into Hui Yuhao's heart and momentarily stunned him. Yes, I should be called Dai Yuhao. But can I really call myself that? Old memories flashed through his mind, about how his mother had brought him up through pain and suffering when he was young, and how she had passed away and eventually been buried in the end. Intense pain erupted from the bottom of his heart, and no matter what rationality told him, and that he couldn't defend his ancestors at a time like this, he still couldn't help but raise his head and retort, "No, my surname is Hua, not Dai." "What did you say?" Dai Mu Bai's facial hair flared, and an incredibly fearsome aura erupted from his body. Dai Mu Bai was a Tier 2 god, and Hui Yuhao was a Tier 1 god, but he was so stifled that he almost couldn't catch his breath. He felt like he was facing Tang San again. Hui Yuhao gritted his teeth and held on painfully, but said nothing. However, there was only stubbornness in his eyes, and that was his answer. Dai Mu Bai's eyes grew cold. "Are you not recognizing your ancestors?" Hui Yuhao's expression also turned cold. He had made up his mind in those few moments. There were some things that could be changed, but some couldn't be changed even across eternity. That is not what I am doing. However, my surname can only follow my mother. My mother raised me through much pain and suffering since my birth. As long as there was some delicious food in the house, she would give it to me, and she quietly ate food that humans shouldn't be eating. I would be dead a long time ago without my mother, so what's the point of recognizing my ancestors if that were the case? I am capable of detaching myself from hate and vengeance, but my mother is no longer around when I have become powerful, so the only thing I can do for her is to continue living, and pass down her surname. Therefore, my surname is Hua, and this surname will never change. Not unless my mother comes back to life and tells me to change it herself. Hui Yuhao struggled to speak in the beginning, but his own aura flourished increasingly as he spoke, and he stood up from the ground towards the end as he bore the brunt of Dai Mu Bai's immense pressure. Hui Yuhao didn't mince his words, and his attitude was decisive. Dai Mubai said coldly, I know what has happened to you. You have offended Tang San, and he will not give you a single chance without us. He might even kill you. If your surname is Hua, then you can scram. You're not part of the Dai family, and I will not help you at all. You will find yourself with nowhere to go in the God realm, and you will suffer Tang San's judgment. Hui Yuhao's heart had turned cold. He laughed at himself mockingly, and he took 2 steps back before he went on his knees again and kowtowed toward Dai Mubai and Zhu Shuqing. Right when Dai Mubai and Zhu Shuqing thought he was about to change his mind, Hui Yuhao suddenly stood up straight as he turned and stepped out of the courtyard. Hui Yuhao didn't hesitate at all, and neither did he dally. He was willing to be an enemy to the whole world rather than change his filial piety and love for his mother. Yuhao? A voice suddenly rang out from behind him. This voice was filled with passion and sniffles, and it was also filled with endless love and warmth. Hui Yuhao's entire body shook when he heard this voice. His eyes were overcome with fear, and he felt like he had been immobilized as he just stood there, motionless. He was still in a daze as he slowly turned around, and his body was quivering continuously despite his determined attitude. The door to the leftmost wooden house had opened. There was a lady at the door. She was simply dressed, and she was sobbing. She was holding onto the door as if she might fall down at the next moment. Her beauty was gentle and fragile, but it was one to be admired. She appeared old, but she was still ravishing. Mom! Hui Yuhao suddenly shouted. He leapt forward, and it felt as if he had completely lost control. He hugged the lady's leg tightly and started bawling. Yes, this lady was his pitiful mother, Hui Yuna. Zhu Shuqing glared at Dai Mubai and her eyes turned slightly red. You're so bad. Why do you have to be so extra? Dai Mubai chuckled. No wonder he's my descendant. He has a backbone. I like kids like this. At least he didn't waste my efforts. Good kid. Very good, very good. This time, Oscar was so envious that his eyes turned red. Ha 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 ha. Hui Yuhao didn't expect to completely lose control of his emotions when he saw his mother. The emotions that he had been suppressing for years were now released. Even Tang Wutong's departure and the repeated tortures that he was subjected to never once made him cry like this. Hui Yuna gently caressed her son's head. Her tears were also flowing down her cheeks. She wanted to pull Hui Yuhao up, but how would she have the strength to? Dai Mubai came to his side and pulled him up from the ground after he had cried for some time. You're a big man. Just vent for a moment and everything will be fine. This is a joyous occasion. You should be happy. As he spoke, he even patted Hui Yuhao's back. His vigorous divine power surged into his body and calmed him down. Elder, thanks for fulfilling my wish. If Hui Yuhao didn't know what was going on now, he would be a fool. He fell to the ground and kowtowed 3 times. Dai Mubai let him do this. There was a grin on his face, and he felt slightly proud. He was so delighted that there was no way anything could beat this. Yes? Anyone would be delighted to have a descendant like Hui Yuhao. Get up. Dai Mubai waved his hand. This time, it was Zhu Shuqing who lifted Hui Yuhao up from the ground. Dai Mubai said, now that you and your mother have been reunited, are you still called Hui Yuhao? Yuna, I shall hand this matter over to you. Yes, elder. Hui Yuna acknowledged as she sobbed. There was a look of gratitude in her eyes. Zhu Shuqing smiled and said, you and your mom have been separated for so long. Both of you must have a lot to talk about. Go into the house and chat. Go on. Yes. Hui Yuhao hurriedly acknowledged her words. He only felt as if there was something stuck in his throat. His mind was also a mess. To him, this was too much. He didn't think anything else was important now. He only wanted to stay by his mother's side. Hui Yuhao squatted down to hug his mother after they entered the house. However, he stopped his tears from flowing any further. Hui Yuna gently caressed his hair and said in a daze, my Yuhao has grown up. He has really grown up. My son, you must have suffered a lot over these years. Hui Yuhao shook his head. Of course he had been through a lot. However, that wasn't important now. What were they considered compared to the revival of his mother? He had a lot of things to say to his mother. However, he didn't know what to say right now. He had been an orphan for so many years, but he was a son once again. It was such a precious feeling. Both of them just hugged each other like this. Gradually, they calmed down. Hui Yuna told Hui Yuhao everything about her. It seemed like Hui Yuna had indeed died more than 10 years ago. However, Hui Yuhao possessed abilities that normal gods didn't have as a Tier 1 god. One was that he could bring a limited number of family members to the godly realm. Even Dai Mubai and Zhu Shuqing couldn't do this. After all, Tang San was an enforcer in the godly realm. Although he couldn't interfere in human affairs, he was still afforded some flexibility when it came to gods. As a result, they found Hui Yuna's spirit after Dai Mubai and Tang San discussed it. They resurrected her and brought her to the godly realm. Although she wasn't even a Tier 3 god, she was still resurrected. Hui Yuhao was Dai Mubai's descendant. After Tang San tested Hui Yuhao and trained him, why would he hide anything from Dai Mubai? This was why Dai Mubai was cognizant of everything regarding Hui Yuhao. He was also aware that Hui Yuna was the biggest knot in his heart. It was only by untying this knot that he could really become a god. This was why this happened. However, Hui Yuhao couldn't bring too many more people into the godly realm. He only had 2 spots left. One was for Hui Yuna, and another one was for Dai Hao. The godly realm was very lonely. Hui Yuna had to be rewarded. Hui Yuna couldn't see what happened in the Dolor continent, but she could sense what was happening within a few hundred square kilometers from her grave. These past few days were her happiest days. This was because she heard the voice of the man she loved. The sorrow and hostility in her heart gradually disappeared because of his voice and the good news that Hui Yuhao brought. How could she not be relieved after seeing Hui Yuhao today? Naturally, Hui Yuhao didn't know what had occurred. However, he was filled with gratitude after learning that Dai Mubai had resurrected Hui Yuna. What was more important than his mother's life? After Hui Yuhao's emotions had more or less stabilized, he recounted everything that had happened to his mother. Of course, he skipped the parts where he faced a lot of trouble and difficulties. He only told her about the happier things. The godly realm didn't seem to have a day and night cycle. After some time had passed, the doorbell rang. Hui Yuhao hurriedly stood up and opened the door. He only saw Dai Mubai standing outside. Elder. Hui Yuhao immediately kneeled down, but he was stopped by Dai Mubai. All right, there aren't so many formalities in the godly realm. How is it? Has Yuna convinced you? Are you willing to be a Dai now? Don't worry, when your dad comes to the godly realm, I'll punish him on behalf of your mother. That rascal. He gave his all to his empire, but why did he neglect his family? From the start until the end, Hui Yuna didn't mention anything about changing surnames. However, Hui Yuhao was clever. There were things that didn't need further explanation. After his mother's resurrection, all his hate and indignation had disappeared. Elder, I'm willing to recognize my ancestry. As he spoke, he kneeled down again. This time, Dai Mubai didn't stop him. He only laughed. All right, all right. In the future, you will be called Dai Yuhao. Dai Mubai was rather pleased with this name. He dragged Hui Yuhao out of the house into the courtyard. A plethora of scrumptious dishes had already been prepared around a table. Dai Mubai picked up a wine vat and poured himself a bowl before passing it to Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao hurriedly received it. He also poured some wine for Zhu Shuqing and his mother. After that, he poured for himself. Dai Mubai picked up his bowl and said, "This meal shall be a celebration of your promotion to a god." Thank you, Elder. Hui Yuhao was overjoyed after seeing his mother. He downed his bowl of wine. Dai Mubai also gulped down his wine and laughed heartily. Fantastic. Fantastic. Dai Mubai changed the topic and asked Hui Yuhao, "Have you seen Tang San since you came to the godly realm?" Hui Yuhao's expression turned bitter. He recounted everything he had encountered since he came to the godly realm. Dai Mubai was also stunned after hearing his words. Hui Yuna appeared very worried. Zhu Xuqing snorted and said, "He's rebelled. Let's find him when we return, and see what he can do to you." Dai Mubai glared at Zhu Xuqing and shot her a look. He said, "I heard Tang San mention this matter before. He's quite unhappy with you. He only has a daughter, and he dotes on her a lot. No wonder he acted like this after what happened. The godly realm places a lot of emphasis on power. You're a tier 1 god. Defeating him is not possible. However, you must show him that you're strong enough. Only that will appease him and make him think that you can protect his daughter. In fact, you don't have to worry. If he proposes that you must beat him, just do your best. Try to hold on for some time. As for the rest, leave it to us." "Yes, thanks, Elder." After listening to Dai Mubai's words, Hui Yuhao felt much more relieved. When he thought of his relationship with Bei Bei and the others, he naturally understood why the previous generation of Shrek's 7 monsters was so close. With 2 elders on his side, it made his job much easier. After a sumptuous feast, Dai Mubai and Zhu Xuqing allowed Hui Yuna to remain in the wooden house. Both of them then brought Hui Yuhao to the sky. In the godly realm, the clouds were very low. Undulations of origin energy of heaven and earth could be felt in the clouds. When one breathed, his divine energy would surge in his body. Hui Yuhao calmed himself after listening to Dai Mubai's instructions. He adjusted the circulation of his divine energy. At the same time, he sensed the changes to his own body. Yes. He was already a tier 1 god. He was the god of emotions. Dai Mubai seemed to know what he was thinking, and said, "If you really just want to resist him, you've already lost this fight before you even fight him. You don't even stand a chance. Whether it's a person or a god, how can he possibly unleash his potential to the maximum if he has no will to win? Since you've already become a god, it's not possible that you don't understand this logic." Hui Yuhao was astonished when he heard him say this. Yes? If he didn't even have the will to win, how much of his fighting strength would he be able to unleash? However, his Wutong's father. Hui Yuhao said a little bitterly. Dai Mubai was scornful, and replied, "Do you really think you can hurt him given your powers? Believe me. Just give it your all. Let's not even talk about whether you can do it. Even if you can, it's a good thing for the godly realm." Hui Yuhao didn't continue. However, he was less fearful than he was before. When he first entered the godly realm, the unfamiliarity left him a little afraid. Fortunately, he met Dai Mubai and Zhu Xuqing at this critical moment, which settled him down. His confidence was also slowly coming back. After all, he was the strongest creature in the entire Delor continent, and he had even defeated the invincible Di Tian. Yes, the godly realm brought him pressure. However, he slowly turned it into motivation after he calmed down. Not long afterward, that pavilion hall was already within sight. When he saw it, Hui Yuhao was immediately excited. This was because Tang Wu was there. No matter what, he had to see her today. He had to explain himself to her. More than 10 golden figures blocked him before he even got close. When they saw Dai Mubai and Zhu Xuqing, they immediately bowed to them and greeted them. While Dai Mubai and Zhu Xuqing were both tier 2 gods, they were very close to Tang San. Naturally, they held higher statuses in the godly realm. Dai Mubai said, "Please invite the sea god out. We have things to talk about." "Yes, please wait a minute." One of the men dressed in gold immediately went to report. Very soon, a beam of blue light descended from the sky. It was Tang San. However, he was no longer dressed in red like he was when he had pursued Hui Yuhao. He focused his gaze when he saw Hui Yuhao. His cold killing intent was immediately revealed. However, it dissipated slightly when he saw Dai Mubai and Zhu Xuqing. "Mubai, why are the 2 of you here?" Tang San asked. He appeared a little indifferent. Dai Mubai said, "Because of this guy. Little San, you're already so old. Why are you still holding grudges against this guy?" I know you dote on Wutong, but you should give him a chance to explain. Tang San snorted and replied, given our ties, we can agree on anything else. However, there's no resolution for this matter. I only have one daughter, but she was hurt so badly in the mortal world. I won't let him harm Wutong again, unless he can beat me. Dai Mubai groaned furiously. So what if he beats you? Do you really think you're invincible? Yu Hao, show him your Tier 1 god abilities. Hui Yu Hao's expression changed slightly. Originally, he had thought that he might really get to see Tang Wutong given Dai Mubai and Zhu Zhuqing's ties with Tang San. However, who knew that they were going to fight after just a few exchanges? He was really put in a spot. Tang San coldly looked at him. Do you dare to challenge me? Hui Yu Hao took in a deep breath, then took a step forward. He drifted forward and bowed to Tang San. I only want to see Wutong once. If you are intent on testing me, I'm willing to give it a go. Tang San suddenly laughed. It was a little disdainful. All right, I really want to see what you've got. A mighty aura was suddenly unleashed. It completely engulfed Hui Yu Hao. Tang San's cold voice rang in his ears. You only have one chance. I won't kill you on Mubai's account. However, I'll wipe away your memories if you dare to come here again. I'll make you forget Wutong forever. Hui Yu Hao suddenly opened his eyes wide. Everyone had their trigger. He was the same. Ever since he came to the godly realm, he was constantly pressured by Tang San. He tried his best to adjust his own mentality and didn't dare to disobey him. However, his competitive streak was triggered the moment he heard Tang San's words. To see Wutong, he couldn't care about anything else right now. A strange glow suddenly shone from his body. His entire aura changed. A jade green projection shone behind his back. It was the Ice Empress. The Ice Empress represented fury. A strong intent rose. Hui Yu Hao's eyes brightened, and his Eye of Destiny opened. A strange glow was shining inside his Eye of Destiny. Suddenly, a thorny wheel of light appeared behind him. It was the 9th soul ring of his spirit eyes, Thorny Halo. Although he was a god now, his soul skills remained. They were even enhanced. Under the effect of his divine sense, Dai Mubai and Zhu Zhuqing could sense the aura that came from his thorny halo. They were both shocked. Immense undulations of divine sense. No wonder he's a Tier 1 god. This thorny halo came from the Evil Eye Tyrant King. Hui Yu Hao didn't even use it when he faced Di Qian. This was because he was worried that Di Qian would find out that he had absorbed the Evil Eye Tyrant King's soul ring, and become more cautious. When he finally used the space-time light, Di Qian was indeed unable to handle it. This was because he was completely unaware in the first place. Now that he was facing Tang San, how could he dare to hide his powers? Tang San had already made his move. He lifted his right hand while pointing at Hui Yu Hao. Everything around him turned blue, and a terrifying pressure immediately surfaced. As he retracted his right hand, he flicked his finger. Suddenly, a ball of greenish jade light flew towards Hui Yu Hao. Although Hui Yu Hao didn't know what skill Tang San was using, he didn't dare to be complacent either. He immediately switched his soul power to ultimate ice. A streak of deep blue light slashed out. It was the unparalleled cold Emperor's Sword. Ding! The unparalleled cold Emperor's Sword was instantly crushed and scattered in the air while that ball of green light still flew towards Hui Yu Hao. It wasn't quick, but it was terrifying. Tang San was scornful. How dare you try to resist my divine sky green annihilation lightning? Hui Yu Hao took in a deep breath. He knew that no soul skill would work on Tang San. He focused, and the Ice Empress projection also became clearer behind him. The Ice Empress was looking at Tang San coldly. She didn't care who her opponent was. Her fury surfaced. With Hui Yu Hao's body as the center, a beam of jade green light shot into the sky and tore a slit in the bluish space around Hui Yu Hao. Hui Yu Hao took a step forward with his left foot and unleashed his yearning intent. On his forehead, his Eye of Destiny suddenly turned black and white. After this, two beams of light shot out. The blue in the sky dimmed instantly. Following this, the world of blue turned black and white. A huge vertical eye seemed to support the entire sky. It was drifting behind Hu Hao. The black and white lights had also filled the entire area. Whether it was Tang San, Dai Mubai, or Zhu Zhuqing, they were all astonished. It was just that their degree of astonishment varied. It wasn't only them. Even Hu Hao couldn't believe it. His eye of destiny was actually so strong? Spiritual reaving and destiny's demise. These two divine skills finally revealed their effectiveness in the godly realm. When the two streaks of light hit Tang San, his body started to shine with bright blue light. However, the bright blue light didn't manage to block the two streaks of light. Instead, Tang San's body turned black and white. Meanwhile, the divine sky-green annihilation lightning arrived in front of Hu Hao. Hu Hao waved his right fist, and Tang Wutong's figure appeared in his eyes. It was his fist of remembrance, packed with anger. Anything that tries to stop me from reaching Wutong shall die in the face of my anger. This was his intent. Boom! The black and white in the sky started to dim after Hu Hao unleashed his two divine skills. However, jade green light instantly filled the area soon afterward. Hu Hao only felt a huge green dragon surrounding his body. After this, an unprecedentedly terrifying explosive force was unleashed. That explosive force struck his body and soul, and the excruciating pain made him feel as if he was about to be torn apart. The jade-green figure turned into the star anise mysterious ice grass. Happiness quickly engulfed Hu Hao. The origin energy from the clouds was quickly surging into his body. Star anise ice origin. Immense origin energy of heaven and earth cleansed Hu Hao's body, restoring the damage done to him. In the distance, Tang San's body shook. He only let out a groan and shuddered at the same time. The black and white undulations on his body also became more intense. However, the black and white disappeared in the next instant. It was just that Tang San appeared a little paler. His hurt was Dai Yuhao's first reaction. Yes, Tang San was hurt. Even Tang San didn't expect that Dai Yuhao's thorny halo would be so strong. He understood him well enough, but it was Yuhao's first time using this thorny halo. The effect of the thorny halo was that 50% of the harm done to him would be reflected onto his opponent as spiritual harm. If this were normal circumstances, this wouldn't have hurt Tang San. However, Tang San had been struck by Dai Yuhao's spiritual reaving. His spiritual defense had been weakened considerably. Good, well done, Tang San said coldly. Dai Yuhao anxiously said, it wasn't intentional. I didn't think this would happen, either. You don't have to explain anything. Tang San lifted his hand, and a very familiar beam of light appeared in his palm. The bright gold light shot out. It was the golden trident. Dai Yuhao had been struck by the divine sky-green annihilation lightning. Although he had been healed slightly through the star anise ice origin, he still felt excruciating pain running through his body. When he saw the golden trident, his expression greatly changed. Just in terms of intent, he could sense the terror radiating from the golden trident. Tang San's expression suddenly turned hollow. The surrounding clouds turned blue. However, the sky was a blue ocean now. Tang San's golden trident moved in a circular motion, creating halos that flew towards Dai Yuhao. Dai Yuhao's senses were very acute. He knew that what he had to do now was to continue maintaining his thorny halo before unleashing his power of destiny. It was only through this that Tang San would be afraid. However, he didn't do so. After all, Tang San was his father-in-law. He was Tang Wutong's father. How could he hurt him? Dai Yuhao quickly retreated backward. However, the golden halos were getting increasingly closer to him. Dai Yuhao was horrified to discover that all his abilities seemed to have been sealed when the golden halos arrived above his head. He couldn't use any soul skills. After that, the halos fell and trapped his body. They restrained him so tightly that he couldn't move. Tang San, don't go overboard. How dare you use your unpredictable storm on a kid? What are you thinking? An angry voice sounded. Following this, lights flashed and a figure appeared not far in front of Tang San. He grabbed the golden trident. Wasn't he the god of emotions, Nian Rongbing? Tang San scanned him coldly. Suddenly, his golden trident moved again. Another round of golden halos was unleashed. Nian Rongbing was very close, but he didn't expect Tang San to lay his hands on him. He was immediately restrained and couldn't move. Not only this, but more golden halos also started to rise not far away. They trapped Dai Mubai and Zhu Xuqing. Tang San looked at Nian Rongbing sinisterly and said, "What do I want? I want to kill this rascal. What's the timing now? How dare you to shirk your responsibilities? After I kill him, I'll remove my daughter's yearning and wipe away her memories. As for you, you'll regain your position as the god of emotions. You'll remain in the godly realm to aid me. Wait and see how he dies." Nian Rongbing was infuriated. He didn't expect Tang San to be like this. His body shone brightly, and he immediately turned to his divine power, trying to escape from the entrapment of the golden halos. However, how could it be easy to escape from the unpredictable storm that Tang San had unleashed using his golden trident? It was the #1 control skill in the godly realm. If Nian Rongbing was still a god and prepared, he might have been able to resist it. However, he couldn't escape now, no matter how much he struggled. Tang San was watching Nian Rongbing. Dai Yuhao only felt the halos slowly tightening. They weren't quick, but they were tightening steadily. He had already tapped into whatever divine power he had, but he still couldn't resist the halos. As the pressure increased, Dai Yuhao felt his bones slowly cracking. He actually wants to wipe away Wu Tong's memories. He's really going to kill me. Wu Tong, Wu Tong. Dai Yuhao was shouting frantically in his heart. The divine energy and sense inside his body were being combusted. However, the golden halos were simply too strong. No matter how much he struggled, he couldn't slow them down at all. Dai Yuhao was starting to feel a little breathless as the pressure grew heavier and heavier. He even felt his body changing shape. Nian Rongbing seemed to be shouting something at Tang San, but Tang San ignored him. He stabbed his golden trident into the ground and just looked back coldly at Nian Rongbing. "Am I about to die?" As he was restrained by the golden halos, even his divine sense couldn't escape. He could only wait as he came closer and closer to death. Wu Tong, Dai Yuhao screamed frantically inside. He didn't want to die, but he was even more unwilling for Tang Wu Tong to forget him. The two elders were restrained. So was Nian Rongbing. If he really died, Tang Wu Tong would forget him forever. He wouldn't be able to see her again. If I can't be with Wu Tong, what's the point of being a god? If he wasn't going to die in silence, he was going to unleash everything he had. Suddenly, Dai Yuhao suddenly lifted his head. An indescribable glow shone from his body. Happiness. The star anise mysterious ice grass projection suddenly appeared. Happiness was suddenly unleashed. That immense emotional undulation instantly fused with his divine sense and power. Instantly, it expanded and alleviated the pressure on him. Anger. Feelings of anger were unleashed next. Right now, Dai Yuhao was filled with intense anger. He couldn't be with Tang Wu Tong, and the man that he viewed as his father-in-law was about to kill him. Sorrow. Snowflakes danced, and boundless sorrow spread. Right now, Dai Yuhao seemed to have returned to the time when he created his 3 ultimate Haodong skills. Bliss. Happy memories were always so beautiful. The roommate he had once had, the beautiful pinkish-blue fairy during the sea god's fated blind date, and everything they went through were all beautiful memories in his mind. Hate. Hate was an emotion projecting pain. The day he left the Duke's mansion, he was filled with pain. When he lost Wang Donga and Wang Chua, he was filled with hatred. Hate drove one crazy. Evil. Dai Yuhao didn't possess evil and craftiness, but he had sensed the evil of evil soul masters. It was a dark world. Right now, the dirtiest things in his heart were being burned up by evil. 6 emotions meant 6 different outbursts. As his emotions were unleashed, His divine soul was enhanced. The star anise mysterious ice grass represented happiness, the ice jade empress scorpion represented anger, the ice sky snow lady represented sorrow, the ice bear king represented bliss, Li Wei represented hate, and the evil eye tyrant king represented evil. 6 light projections appeared separately behind Dai Yu Hao. At times, they fused together. At times, they separated. Just as they did that, a 6-colored glow was released. This glow was unbelievably strong, and it managed to force the halos away. Dai Yu Hao's body also shone with a 6-colored aura. A huge golden projection suddenly appeared. A golden glow engulfed all 6 spirits and their 6 emotions. An indescribable gentleness, wildness, and sense of love surged forth. This was the power of love. Wutong. I love you. Dai Yu Hao shouted. At this moment, his sound waves turned into a rainbow light that struck toward the mighty pavilion in the distance. Dense fog transformed and formed rows in the sky. As he screamed, the halos around his body started to crack. Happiness, anger, sorrow, bliss, love, hate, evil. Finally, the power of love defeated all other emotions and fused with all of them. At this moment, Dai Yu Hao's divine power and sense, as well as his own spirit, were enhanced. In his heart, Tang San was no longer a barrier. He was also freed of worries and anger. He was only filled with love and yearning for Tang Wu. Tang San waved his golden trident and streaks of golden light were released. However, they weren't used to attack Dai Yu Hao, but to remove the restraints on Dai Mubai and Zhu Zhuqing. A smile appeared on Tang San's face. He lifted his hand and grabbed Nian Rongbing's shoulder. Nian Rongbing was very grim. He was filled with anger and sorrow. Bang! The golden halos that had restrained Dai Yu Hao were completely crushed. He broke out, and his rainbow glow turned into 7 halos that formed a miraculous wall behind him. His aura was much stronger than it was before. The undulations of the 7 emotions kept on surging, fusing with Dai Yu Hao's divine sense and power. This was the first time he had this sense of control ever since he came to the godly realm. Tang San smiled and nodded as he looked at Yu Hao. He said, "That's more like it. You're looking more and more like my son-in-law." Dai Yu Hao was still immersed in his own emotions. After he heard Tang San's words, he was dazed for a moment. "Silly kid, why aren't you greeting your father-in-law?" Dai Mubai spoke up from behind him. Dai Yu Hao kneeled subconsciously and bowed to Tang San. "Greetings, father-in-law." Tang San waved his hand and said, "Get up." Right now, he was smiling. His long blue hair flowed. His charming looks were captivating. Dai Yu Hao felt as if he was in a dream when he saw that genial smile. Is he really the father-in-law who just made things difficult for me? Everything seemed to be very different at this instant. Dai Mubai smiled as he said, "Silly kid. If Tang San really wanted to make things difficult for you, do you really think you would be alive now?" Zhu Zhuqing was a little indignant as she said, "Brother San, weren't you a little too overboard?" Tang San smiled and said, "Let me explain." He looked at Dai Yu Hao and said, "I already knew about your matter with Zhu Zi. You weren't wrong. You were just played by destiny. Although we are gods, we can't interfere with human affairs. Let bygones be bygones. Everything's good as long as you are true to Wutong. I made things difficult for you for a reason. I chose you. I also performed many tests on you. Even for Wang Chua, I separated a streak of Wutong's divine sense and planted it on that 3-eyed golden lion. Otherwise, even a destiny god beast wouldn't be so intelligent. That's why you don't have to be too upset over Wang Chua. She's a part of Wutong. It was only after she sacrificed herself that the spiritual sense returned to Wutong, and transformed Wang Donga completely into Wutong. After that, someone cut in and tried to make you inherit his godly seat. However, you went through my tests. Although it was not a problem for you to inherit his godly seat, there was still some shortfall when it came to the fusion of skills. It was difficult for you to completely fuse with the God of Emotions abilities after you had just entered the godly realm. I used this method to put pressure on you, which would aid your fusion. It seems like it was effective. In the future, you should be able to do better than a certain someone. Rong Nianbing was furious as he retorted, so you planned all this? It's your scheme. Tang San, you are despicable. You even tricked me into swearing earlier. Tang San appeared very calm as he said, you think it's so easy to snatch my successor? Don't you have to pay a price? Dai Yuhao lowered his voice as he asked Nian Ronbing, teacher, what vow did you make? Rong Nianbing snapped, I vowed to remain in the godly realm for 30 more years if he agreed not to hurt you. Who knew that I was tricked? He didn't just do this to you. He did this to me too. Dai Mubai, did you and your wife know about it too? Dai Mubai claimed innocence. I didn't. How would I? I'm only a tier 2 god. Rong Nianbing was furious. Bullshit. Given your hot temper, how would you remain so calm if Tang San really treated your descendant like this? How would you not do anything? Shu Shuqing snorted. If you knew it, why were you tricked? I really doubt your intelligence. You guys, HMPH. I'm furious. Rong Nianbing was panting heavily. Tang San grabbed his shoulder and said, all right, don't be mad. Stay and help me, all right? You should know that the godly realm hasn't been so peaceful recently. However, you want to leave now. Are you still a brother? Moreover, you stole my successor and implicated my daughter. What's there to be dissatisfied with? Yu Hao is such a talent. How can I easily find someone else like him? Dai Yu Hao understood now. It turned out that he was under Tang San's control right from the beginning. Perhaps that woodland, so like the Great Star Do Forest, was invented by him, and he was baited to meet the two elders and his mother. Dai Mubai laughed. You should see where he inherited his talent from. Little San, quickly let your daughter out. Can't you see that this kid is too anxious? Tang San laughed and said, go, Yu Hao. Wu Tong is in the pavilion. Follow this path to find her. I don't blame you. As for whether she does, I don't know. Yes, thank you, father-in-law. No matter how indignant he felt now, there was nothing more important than finding Tang Wu Tong. A beam of golden light spread towards the pavilion in the direction that Tang San pointed. Dai Yu Hao quickly charged off in that direction. Tang San revealed a heavy look on his face when he saw Dai Yu Hao disappearing into the clouds. A grown-up daughter won't remain by my side. Rong Nianbing was scoffed scornfully, all right, don't act like you've suffered after you've taken advantage. Don't I know you well enough? The godly realm is full of problems. Your precious son-in-law will help you greatly after he inherits my godly seat. Is there even anywhere else in the godly realm to go? Your daughter won't leave you at all. What's there to whine about? Tang San sighed and said, Nianbing, do you know why I want to keep you here for another 30 years? Rong Nianbing was stunned for a moment. Aren't those guys unconvinced and want to cause trouble when the two god kings aren't around? Do we have to be scared of them? Tang San shook his head and replied, I'm not too worried about them. No matter what, it's all internal matters in the godly realm. I'm worried about something else. I hold power in the godly realm after the two god kings left. That's why I'm the only one who can sense changes in the godly realm. Within 30 years, I'm afraid there will be massive changes. As for what they'll be, I'm not sure. However, I'm afraid there's going to be a catastrophe that will destroy the godly realm. What? Rong Nianbing was stunned. He knew that Tang San wasn't one to spout nonsense. Dai Mubai said, Little San, we can overcome any obstacle as long as we come together. Tang San laughed bitterly. I hope so. It's just that this catastrophe won't be that simple. That's why I didn't cede my godly seat to Yu Hao. Nianbing, do you really think I didn't know that you secretly went to see Yu Hao? No matter how busy I am, I still monitored my successor. I gave up the opportunity intentionally. I need to maintain my full strength to deal with the future crisis. Rong Nianbing asked, can the crisis be averted? Tang San squinted and replied, I can't tell. It'll be difficult. However, There's a chance. We just need to try our best. Rong Nianbing said, all right. However, there's something I need to advise you first. If you want to deal with the crisis, you need to stabilize things internally first. Okay. Dai Yuhao followed the golden light and went deep into the clouds. Everything in front of him became clear. A majestic pavilion was soon in front of him. As he moved in the direction of the golden light, he couldn't be bothered with the majesty of the pavilion. He quickly entered. He immediately saw a guy and a lady sitting in the main hall. They were playing chess. They didn't look very old. The guy was decked out in black, and was quite handsome. The lady was also ravishing, and she dressed in white. She appeared very pure. Dai Yuhao seemed to have startled them when he entered. They turned their attention to him immediately. The guy stood up and nodded at Dai Yuhao. He stepped forward. Hi, my name is Ji Dong. You must be Yuhao. Welcome to the Judicial Committee. Ah. Nice to meet you. This is the Judicial Committee. Dai Yuhao was a little astonished. That lady in white also stood up. Ji Dong said, this is Shuijing Lai Yang. Greetings. Dai Yuhao immediately greeted her. Even though he didn't know who either of them were, he knew that their statuses weren't low if this was the Judicial Committee. Lai Yang smiled and said, quickly, go and find Wu Tong. Thanks. Dai Yuhao bowed to both of them and went along with the golden light. As she watched him leave, Lai Yang said, Yuhao is a loyal man. He was just like you then. Ji Dong chortled and said, I suspect brother Tang San used me as a benchmark to recruit his son-in-law. Lai Yang chortled and said, you wish. Ji Dong hugged her and said, in fact, tasting sweetness after experiencing bitterness is the best. I believe he'll experience that soon. The golden light extended all the way to the top level before it disappeared. There was a door, which Dai Yuhao knocked on. Come in, a gentle female voice responded. It sounded extremely captivating. However, Dai Yuhao's expression changed. He knew that it wasn't Tang Wu Tong's voice. Dai Yuhao squinted when he entered. There were two people in the room. One of them was standing, while the other one was seated. The standing lady was in a pink dress, her long hair braided up. From the side, her slender and smooth neck could be seen. Her dress also accentuated her captivating figure. At this point, she had already turned around. Her ravishing looks left Dai Yuhao in shock. As for the lady on the bed, Dai Yuhao could see that it was the person he had been yearning for all this while, even though he only saw her profile. Hi. Dai Yuhao subconsciously greeted the lady, but his attention was all on Tang Wu Tong. The lady walked in front of him and carefully sized him up. However, Dai Yuhao was still distracted. The lady smiled and said, I'm Xiao Wu. However, she appeared very pleased. It was the look a mother-in-law gave when she approved of her son-in-law. After that, she gently patted his shoulder before walking past him and closing the door. Wu Tong. There wasn't anyone else. Dai Yuhao couldn't hold it in anymore. He exclaimed and leapt in front of Tang Wu Tong. Tang Wu Tong was seated there, but she was expressionless. It was as if someone had frozen her in place. She was completely motionless. Wu Tong, it's my fault. It's all my fault. Let me explain, okay? Dai Yuhao knelt down in front of her and held her slightly cold hands. Tang Wu Tong appeared more intrigued. She turned to look at him, but there was a lost look in her eyes. Who are you? These three words hammered Hui Yuhao. Suddenly, he was very pale. An indescribable sense of fear rose in his heart. He subconsciously let go of Tang Wu Tong's hands and fell uncontrollably to the floor. He would rather that she scolded or chased him away than to hear her say something like that. Has she lost her memory? Has she lost her memory of me? Does she not know me anymore? Does she not recognize me anymore? The extreme fear left Dai Yuhao in chaos. Who are you? Tang Wu Tong tilted her head and asked again as she looked at him. When she saw the fear in his eyes, Tang Wu Tong laughed. I remember. You are Hoi Yu Hao and Dai Yu Hao. You are my man, my husband, and the father to my kids in the future. You were the fool outside screaming that you loved me. You are my fool. This video will end here.